Let's move on to main topic number 3. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by our good friend Kevin Rubio, who writes, Variety is recording tonight that Comic-Con at home, remember San Diego Comic-Con had to go all virtual this year because of the pandemic, and they called it Comic-Con at home. Variety is reporting tonight that Comic-Con at home overall is a bust. Yes, they are, and we'll get into why in just a minute, is a bust, with social media talk about panels being down 95% despite having high-profile guests, sparking the question, if Comic-Con throws a convention and nobody talks about it, did it even happen? Can numbers like these be transposed onto other social gatherings like cinemas and predict their outcome? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Kevin. And yeah, it is staggering. Look, one of the big heartbreaks for me within our little sphere of entertainment lovers, one of the big heartbreaks for me out of the whole pandemic, again, speaking completely within the confines of being entertainment lovers, was the fact that Comic-Con had to get canceled. You know, I love going to Comic-Con. Comic-Con is just good for the soul to be surrounded by multiple hundreds of thousands of people who are just happy and having a good time and celebrating their fandom. And there's just something nutritious for the soul being there. I go to Comic-Con, and despite the fact that it's exhausting, I come away from it feeling refreshed every year. But anyway, that aside, obviously they couldn't have it this year, so they went ahead and made the decision to do a virtual one. Not a terrible idea. But despite the fact that they were able to get like a New Mutants panel, the Boys panel, Bill and Ted and stuff like that to do these virtual panels, it really paled in comparison to the talent lineup they were able to get. As a result, not just of that, but other things we'll talk about here in a second, the amount of social media attention for Comic-Con at home was significantly down. This comes to us from the folks at Variety, who writes, according to data from social media analytics firms Listen First, tweets that mention Comic-Con at home were down 95% from 2009's live convention. Just 93,681 tweets over the 5-day event, against 1,719,000 tweets in 2019. Tweets about the top 10 TV events were similarly down 93%, and tweets about the top 5 movie panels were down a shocking 99%. So look, Comic-Con clearly did what they had to do. I mean, there's no getting it. They did what they had to do. They made a transition. They pivoted to doing it at home virtually, and they did what they could. And you know what? Despite the fact that they didn't get a lot of the big properties, they still managed, like we said, managed to pull out The Boys, and they managed to pull out a What We Do in the Shadows panel and New Mutants. And by the way, New Mutants made big news announcing that they were going to stay on the August 28th release date. They dropped new footage. So did The Boys, all that kind of stuff. But there was simply not the energy. There was simply not the momentum. There was simply not that wave of positivity coming out of Comic-Con that we are used to seeing. In this case, a 95% drop of social media mentions compared to last year. I think there are two main reasons for this, for Comic-Con being a bust, as Variety would put it. I think there's two main reasons. Reason number one, we've already mentioned. There wasn't nearly as many celebrity participants. There wasn't nearly as many of the panels. There wasn't nearly as much representation there from the entertainment industry as there is in other years. That is one significant part, absolutely. I, however, would go so far as to say that the other and maybe even more major significant part is this. Nothing replaces being there in person. Nothing replaces being there in person. Pardon me. There is an energy level and an enthusiasm and an electricity that is generated by people actually being there that then catches fire and spreads across the internet. You know, let me put it this way. A little bit of an example of this is, look, growing up, if all I had ever done was watched Toronto Maple Leaf hockey games, as a kid, I would have been interested in the Toronto Maple Leafs and in the sport of hockey. well, being Canadian, I would have been into hockey no matter what, but I would have been a Toronto Maple Leafs fan just because I was watching on TV. But what made me I'm convinced of this, what made me a lifelong Toronto Maple Leafs fan was my father spending ungodly amounts of money to take me as a kid to a Toronto Maple Leafs hockey game. To go to Maple Leaf Gardens, to actually go physically in person, be at a Toronto Maple Leafs hockey game. That solidified it for me. You know, and when I track my love of my team back, it goes to that moment as a kid. My dad, and I still remember the overly cramped seats that we had to sit in, the stale food that we had to eat because they weren't great on concessions, but it was that moment, actually physically being there in the arena. There was nothing that could not be replicated watching the hockey games at home. Couldn't be replicated in the least. I think of a movie experience. You know, if I had first watched The Empire Strikes Back on home video, I'm sure I would have loved it. But my first experience with Empire Strikes Back was one of my dad's younger sisters, my aunt, took me to the Tivoli Theater in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, to go watch Empire Strikes Back on the big screen, and being in that room and hearing the gasps when Vader says, "No, I am your father," and being part of that energy as people in the audience cheered when the first walker went down and all that kind of stuff, being there made all the difference in the world. And I would propose that for something like Comic-Con, actually being there in town, whether you're in Hall H or just in the convention center, there's an intangible thing that cannot be replaced by seeing it online. And so what happens is all these hundreds of thousands of people at Comic-Con, incredibly fired up, all that energy, all that buzz, and then it overflows online and starts to spread like wildfire. And so, you know, I would kind of suggest that, yeah, the lack of some of the bigger panels is probably one of the things. But I think an even bigger thing was nothing replaces, in an event like Comic-Con, actually being there. Nothing replaces it. Nothing can come close to being a substitute. Nothing can even imitate it. Being there is so infinitely superior that I'm not surprised that once it comes to online, even with big announcements coming out and everything, I'm not surprised at the social media interactions of what was going on with Comic-Con at home. And I think they did a good job, all things considered. I think the folks at Comic-Con can hold their heads high. I think they did as good of a job as you could do. But nothing replaces being there. I do want to suggest one thing, though. I want to suggest one thing. And I don't know what you guys are going to think about this. But, you know, the reality is, not everybody can get to Comic-Con, right? And even if you're at Comic-Con, nobody can go to all the panels. Nobody can get to all the panels and all the events, or be in Hall H every time, or be in Ballroom 20, or all the dozens of other panels that are going on at the same time. Here's one little change I think Comic-Con should make moving forward once Comic-Con is live and in person again. Because, you know, even if you wanted to go to Comic-Con and you're able to go to Comic-Con, you're going to be lucky if you can get passes. Passes sell out like in a matter of minutes. Also, because they keep it in San Diego, you'll be lucky. You have to enter. I'm not joking. This isn't hyperbole for those of you who don't know about this. You have to enter a lottery to see if you can get a hotel room. So here's something that I think they should do that I think would be great for people who can't make it to Comic-Con, and great for people who do go to Comic-Con. I want to suggest this. I want to suggest that if you get to go to Comic-Con, right? I think for an extra $10, I think you should have the option, if you go to Comic-Con, that if you pay an extra $10 for your pass, then as soon as Comic-Con is ended, Comic-Con takes every single panel that was held. The biggest one with 6,000 people in attendance, the smallest one with 12 people in attendance. If you pay 10 extra bucks, then you get access to Comic-Con Online, which will be an online place where every single panel that was held there that year, you can now go in and watch. Because if I'm at Comic-Con, I can maybe get to 10, 12, 15 panels, not all 375 panels. It would be great if I can catch up on those later. I think Comic-Con should put cameras in every room, professionally record every single panel, and then for people who can't make it to Comic-Con, you offer a $25, that's too much, maybe a $15 deal. $15, and you get access for the entire year to every single panel that was held at Comic-Con. Not some bad shaky phone cam version, actually professionally recorded and then curated and put online. So if you go, maybe $5 extra, and you get to watch all the things later. If you can't go and you stay at home, $15, and you get access to all the hundreds of panels that happen, and you can watch them all year. I think that would go a long way because you still get all the excitement of being there. Nothing beats being there, but also you give a little bit more access for people who attended and people who didn't attend. Just a little idea I want to throw out there. Question is, guys, I want to know what you think of my idea about them. Maybe they should record every panel and then create a virtual online pass that people can. Doing it live would be too difficult. You can't stream it live. There's just too many things going on, whatever. But maybe as soon as the convention's over, $15, you can watch all of it. What do you guys think about that idea? Also, why do you think? Do you agree with my reasoning about why Comic-Con at home struggled to come anywhere near the success of live Comic-Con? What are your thoughts on that? Jump down into the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys.